Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Tao of Love and Sex. I'm Arorah, and today Lao and I are going to talk about the age-old questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? And why am I here? We're going to talk about Taoist Cosmology. You know, the question, who am I? Why am I here? Where did I come from? These questions have been asked by almost every thinking human from the beginning of time. And even in our scientifically and technologically advanced civilization, no one knows for certain how all this life got started. Every religion has speculated, science has its theories, believers believe, doubters doubt, knowers know. But it's the questions that continue to haunt us. Are we living in the matrix? Does this life have meaning? Who is our creator? Why am I born just to die later? These are super hardcore questions, and Tao and I are going to look at some of these questions from a Taoist perspective, and we're also going to juxtapose them to some of the Eastern and Western perspectives as well. All right. So welcome, Lao. Thank you for taking this time.
Hi.
Good morning.
How are you? Good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. Sunshine. You know, it's funny. You know, it's funny. When I do that, people generally get so frustrated with me. Like, I'll say things like, look, are you one of those hand wavers? And they go, I practice Qigong. I'm like, you're a fucking hand waver. And they get so mad at me. Or I'll go, namaste. It's so good. And then they're like, you know, that's people's spiritual beliefs. I'm like, if it's your spiritual beliefs, why are you getting so butthurt? Here's the problem with spiritual beliefs. If they make your life better, no one can disparage them, right? Because they make your fucking life better. If you're like, you do that Jenny Craig with me, be like, yep, my ass looks good. Jenny Craig, fuck you. I love Jenny. I mean, you don't have to like her, but I love Jenny. But when you're like, no, I need everybody to do this so I feel it too. You're full of shit. But namaste to you because you sound woke as fuck. Yeah, I think
I love it. I love it.
It's funny. So I do it mostly to tell people, listen, the only thing that ever needs to be defended in your life is your ego. The only thing that can be offended in your life is your ego. One lady once told me, and what would happen if I went to your Taoist temple and did that? I'm like, I'd probably pour you a drink. You can't offend me with Taoism. You could say Lao Tzu was a pedophile and no good. I'd be like, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Never showered with the guy, but I'm not in it for Lao Tzu, and I'm damn sure not in it for any titles. I do it because this is the way. That's it. The rest, fuck do I know?
Well, all right. So we're going to get into some heavy duty questions because the question of the day is, why am I here? Who am I? And what this life is all about? What is the purpose? And I just wanted to, before we begin, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I'd like to look at this perspective, not from a Taoist perspective, but also from a Gnostic perspective. And I want to talk a little bit about what Gnosticism is, because I know you're super into it. And also maybe even a Judeo-Christian perspective. We know that the Nag Hammadi Library was something that was discovered in Egypt around 1945. It's kind of changed a lot of people's games. Just in general, just tell us what Gnosticism is and what does it mean, Gnostic?
It's a Greek word. It means to know, but it's not like the know you get from a book. Years ago, when I left the temple that I grew up in, years ago, I actually, I didn't know how the world worked. And when you grow up with 2 Chinese, 2 Tibetan, 2 Thai, 1 Laos, and 1 Cambodian, you don't have a really good, clutch on the Western hemisphere. I mean, some great noodle recipes, and you know how to have a huge prostate, but you don't really get too much of like life. Because if you ask any of the monks in my monastery, they'd been living together long before I ever got there in the early 80s. But if you ask them what life was about, they'll be just like, it's about nothing. And you're like, oh, so like you don't have to do nothing? No, you gotta live, but it's not about anything. You're like, that's really hard for an adolescent, especially a dumb one. That's hard to grasp. So when I left the temple, my first thing I wanted to know was, what is the way? Like everybody's doing their thing, but how was your thing? And how was your thing? And how is your thing? How does it work for you? But they're so radically different. Like if I go to Mecca and I go to the Kabul, the shrine, and I'm doing around and I'm on Hajj and I'm a Haji now, everybody's gonna be like, you're amazing. You've done it. You've done the Hajj. You're amazing. I'll be like, assalamu alaikum, man. But then if I go over to the Wailing Wall, put a yarmulke on, because you got to have a yarmulke. I didn't have a yarmulke, and they wouldn't let me go without a yarmulke. I bought a thing of fries with the little fry boat and put the fry boat on. It was awesome, actually, because I didn't have anything.
I hope that's not sacrilegious to anyone.
If it's sacrilegious, I'm sorry, but I promise you that Solomon will forgive me because he's wise. Anyways, so I roll up my thing, and I start doing some Talmudic prayers that somebody taught me, and people be like, "Oh my God, he's seen the light." No, actually, I don't give a shit about either. That's just dirt, and I'm okay with it. But I wasn't doing it to be sacrilegious or to be unkind or to even. I really wanted to understand, how do people Tao their Tao? How do people live the way? Yeah. And you get to most of the Semitic religions, which is the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims, but they're not all that different. I mean, I think that's why they kind of quarrel so much, is because they're kind of more alike than they really probably want to be. And so it's like, I mean, even the Quran says, if you're Muslim, Christian, Jew, or Sabaean, you're a person of the book. We respect you. Yeah. But like people quarrel because they're too close. So those are exoteric or orthodox religions, and nothing wrong with them. God bless them, And please don't ever take my irreverence to be mocking or that I'm putting anybody down. I'm just irreverent as hell because
that's your Tao.
Well, not only that, but my reverence is for life itself.
Yeah.
I don't believe in ideologies. I think 99% of all the atrocities have happened have not because of religion, it's because of ideologies. It's always the acolytes. It's always the zealots that are like, well, I love God so much, I'll kill for him. It's like, but wait, you mean the God that was like, don't kill? Like that God? Yeah, but if you're a believer and they're not, then you got killed. God damn it. So we can't have nice things, So, but I started to go deeper, obviously, because there was nothing new under the sun there. But then I started to travel extensively, about 50 countries. And in those 50 countries, I started meeting people like James. And I meeting people like Swamis. And not the Swamis out on, 125th Street, with the dirty beards and all, but like the guys who are like wandering in basically a dirty diaper up in the damn Himalayas with no clothes on, no oxygen out there. There's no heat whatsoever. And they're just walking around like, what up? I'm like, oh, this guy's got something to tell me. And so I spent time with him. We actually wrestled first because he wasn't going to talk to me. And I was like, I'll wrestle your ass first. And they saw it had some hooch on me, some alcohol. And he's like, why don't you just tell me I had alcohol? Pour me a drink. We'll talk. I'm like, nice.
So they love alcohol.
That one did. Guess it helps with the blood flow. But okay. Then I started meeting a bunch of indigenous peoples: Turkmenistan, Dagestan, Uzbekistan, just different places. Inner Mongolia. And then I started meeting different sects of like Ismaili Muslim, but they're about as Muslim as you are. I mean, they use the vernacular, but they're a whole other bag of Doritos. And you're like, whoa, it's like Aleppo, Syria. It's like, wow, like this is a whole new thing. And then I got to Haifa, Israel, and I met a rabbi by the name of Barak, but I say Barak because that's how his wife called him. So that's what I'm going to call him. And he taught me Kabbalah. And he explained a lot of Kabbalah to me. And he explained that most of the operating systems that the Western brain works on is mapped in Kabbalah. And it's true. So if you have an iPhone or a Galaxy notebook or Android or whatever, all the apps are running on an operating system. And for Kabbalah, whether you do the gematria or whatever, there's something to it. It really works. And then I met a cultural anthropologist, and he was teaching me about the Phoenicians, because the Phoenicians and the Levites used to live near each other. And so there was something called the Rasham Ra tablets, where they opened up the Ugarit library, and they've been perfectly restored. And it was amazing to find out about Astarte and Baal-Hadad, and that actually Solomon had created a temple to Astarte, and there was a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And so I started learning about that and the Phoenicians, and then I met up with some people which are called Nusairi. They're a type of, you would say they fall under Islam, but they're not Islamic. And they actually are very, very close to another group called the Mandeans. The Mandean are pretty much the only real unbroken lineage. And they believe, and they live in South Iraq and Iran, but they're from Palestine. And they started with their original master, which they call the King of Light. Now, they don't believe he's a god. They just believe he's a real awesome guy. Mm-hmm. And his name was John the Baptist.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And so they have some real stuff. And it's kind of inflammatory for a lot of people. You'd have to have the context, and this isn't what the show's about. Mm-hmm. But it's like you hear a whole different story about the Bible or biblical times. And then Manichaean Gnosticism is actually an offshoot, because Mani, his father, was a Mandean. So Manichaeanism, right? Well, the Manichaeans and the Taoists actually had a lot of discourse back and forth in the Kunlun Mountains, where they would drink tea and discuss the difference between gnosis and the internal alchemy, the Nadon.
So let me just pause there for one quick second.
Sure.
Because I just want to, just sort of create a little bit of a paradigm. Because I think that, I was listening to someone talk about the difference between a faith-based ideology, religion, and a knowledge-based ideology and religion. And just give us a little.
Okay, so that actually goes. So everything that you read in the Bible doesn't start in Galilee. It starts in a place called Alexandria, Egypt. The Mandeans believe that yes, they go back to John the Baptist in Galilee, but they don't believe that their religion started in Galilee. They believe the religion started in Alexandria, Egypt. Everything goes back to Alexandria.
Right.
And so if you remember that Alexandria is also the home of a library and a really beautiful woman by the name of Hypatia. And there was I believe this is 3rd century, a man by the name of Cyril of Alexandria decided, I ain't having this shit no more. And they burned the library and most of the Gnostic works. This is where the Nag Hammadi library was found, because it had been preserved because they were burning everything. Right. And so, but before Cyril, even up to the time of the Council of Nicaea in the 4th century, which is when they put the Bible together, Christianity was nothing like we knew. First, they had women bishops and women priests. It was a very normal thing. Second, you had a lot of sort of degrees that you would go through, if whether you were sort of more towards St. Peter or more towards John the Baptist and Mary Magdalene. Like those are two very different spectrums. And
of Gnosticism.
What? No, of Christianity.
Of Christianity.
As a whole.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
the Gnostics believe they're Christians. That just the word Christ isn't about a guy named Jesus.
Right.
Christ is everybody who gets everybody in, let's say, the temple of Dionysus. Everybody that was baptized there was considered a Christos, because it just means the anointed one.
Right.
So there was John Christ, there was Bill Christ, there was William Christ, like everybody. As long as you're initiated, you're a Christ.
So just slow that down just a little bit, just because the word Christ means the anointed one. And also there is, we talked earlier, back, I don't know, months ago, about the pineal gland.
Yep.
And that seems to be in all of these mystical traditions a very important element, and it does have something to do with Christ. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So the concept of anointing is done with oil. Now, a lot of people think of spikenard on the head or any of those type of things. Yes, that's an outward representation of an inward sacred process.
Which is alchemy?
It is an alchemical process as well. Although, there's something called the Arcanum Arcanorum, which is the secret of secrets. And that's a version of it that does less alchemical language, but still alchemical in process. But the idea is so you have your pituitary gland and you have your pineal gland. These two glands produce different substances. Now, the pituitary, everything on the front
side.
Of
milk and honey?
You don't even know. So good. Okay, so the pituitary deals with your thyroid, deals with your testosterone, estrogen, follicular hormone, luteal hormone, insulin, everything. It's like a conductor of an orchestra. It's right. But on the backside, the posterior, there are only two things that it regulates. Prolactin. So if you're a woman and you're breastfeeding, then you're having the Helga experience, and prolactin helps that happen.
And the milk, as we said, part of the milk.
Milk and honey. But the other one is called oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is a very mystical hormone, and it's a neurotransmitter, and it's very, very important because anybody who's had a child will tell you that there's this moment when they put the child on your chest that you're overcome. Now, a lot of women today will go, I kind of felt that, but it was more relief just from that it's over. It's like, okay. So historically, biologically, oxytocin is not easy to understand because today we take too many things to be evidence-based, and if it's not logic, reason, something. But and don't get me wrong, if you get in a car accident, go to a hospital, don't be like, well, Lao said that it's me. No, don't do that.
But I just want to say about the oxytocin is that when a mother gives birth to a baby, that baby isn't just put on her chest. It's like cut it's stuff put in its eyes. It's like injected with a bunch of crap. And then you can have some time with it. It's not very natural at all.
Right. But like, for example, when I was a barefoot doctor, I would help people have babies in rural places where there's no silver nitrate or anything. Now, why do women get episiotomies, and why do women get C-sections so much? Okay, the way that the oxytocin works is you have to have an environment, low light. Mm-hmm. It's got to be warm. It can't be cold. Mm-hmm. And you got to feel like, think about a dog. If you've had dogs or cats that have litters or any other animal, what do? They go to a dark, warm place where they know they're safe from predators, because that's the most vulnerable time. Mm. And if you don't have that, oxytocin won't come out. I'll be like, I don't give a shit about you. I don't care. And
so that's why there's more a connection with people at night. Like,
100%, 100%, especially.
and do men produce oxytocin?
Yes, because when a man, when the baby's born, and if the man is present during that, and it's all happening, yeah, it gets huge. I have 3 kids. I felt oxytocin with all of them, and it's a powerful, powerful thing. Now, when you don't make oxytocin because your legs are in a stirrup, you're not letting gravity, you're not in a squatting position, which is natural for childbirth.
There's all of this
your legs
light
up.
shining
You got
down
these
on you.
big ass lights. It's it's like 61 degrees. You're getting turkey basted every 5 seconds to see if you're dilated, which doesn't typically work. How can you produce the oxytocin? You can't. If you ever notice, kids are all boys. Usually in the past, when were kids born? Nighttime. Kids aren't born at nighttime. Most kids are born between the hours of 9 and 5, outside of golf tee times. So because of cesarean section, it's more convenient.
Right.
But it's not. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not if you had a cesarean or whatever, please don't be like, he's disparaging my birth experience. Calm down. Put your trigger warnings away. Put them away. I'm not saying that. You still had a valid experience. I cannot negate your experience. If you feel that I can negate your experience, you're giving me too much control. Here's your remote control back. I don't want it. But I can tell you just how the biology of humans work in that way. And so when that happens, and the mother is completely bonded to the child, because that's what oxytocin does. When they put the baby here on the mom's chest, her heart obviously is pounding. This part of the body heats up like an incubator. But what's interesting is the baby's brain waves and the neural waves, because the heart has neural glands, so it has a brain. And so the neural waves on the heart and the neural waves of the baby are now synchronizing. It teaches the baby to be at peace. It teaches the baby how to love. It teaches the baby how to bond with people. Yeah. And when you don't get that, if you go to death row, every one of the people on death row have one thing in common. They don't feel they were wanted by their mom. So the oxytocin comes from, so when you talk about the samadhi, when you talk about the nirvana, that is hugely attributable to the oxytocin, but it's not only attributable to the oxytocin. It's also attributable to the pineal creates endogenously dimethyltryptamine, DMT.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Now, when the two mix together, it is a powerful substance. Some people call it the elixir. Some people call it the great medicine. Some people call it a lot of things. But the point is it transforms your body, your consciousness into I'm not even going to say non-ordinary state. It transforms you into a spiritual being who realizes just what exactly it means to be having a human experience. But simultaneously, you don't reject it. It's not like you're away from it. You, in fact, realize that it's all you. It was always you.
Yes.
The person that pisses you off, that's you.
Yeah.
The person that makes you feel so amazing has nothing to do with them. It's you. It's always going to be you. It's the universe realizing it's the universe as the universe. And it's beyond anything. And when that happens, this is what they did in the Eleusinian mystery schools. That's what they did in the Egyptian mystery schools. That's what it was always about. Now.
So wait 1 second, just to get back to that question. So what I'm hearing is things that are occult or secretive are secretive because, not because you can't know them, but because the only way you can know them is to have the experience.
Gnosis.
So once you have the experience, you now are a knower.
Yep.
It's not just faith, whereas other ideologies say, just believe us, have faith. Do you want to address that a little bit about the idea of faith? Yeah.
So that goes back to what we were talking about with gnosis versus faith. So again, before the Council of Nicaea, if you were going through these 1st and 2nd century Christian world, it was very, very different, right? There was a lot of overlap between the temples of Serapis, the temples of Isis, and Christianity, and there was not a lot of in fact, Serapis was created so that Christians, Isis followers, and Osiris followers, and Jews could all actually go, oh, I recognize some of my guy in there. Okay. And so they could all, it was very useful. But you had to go through 3 stages. The first stage was called the Hylic. You know, that's the knucklehead who comes in, puts their money in the plate. Tell me what I got to say. Okay, I'm good, right? Good. Salvation. Got it. I'm good. And you know, a lot of those people.
Yeah.
I think
And
they're called
you know what?
Jack
It's so funny
Mormons.
because some people just love that. You know, I know like people, I attended the Matrix with someone who just said, I would just take the blue pill. I would not never take the red pill. I don't, you know, I just like that, you know, keep me in that place.
Yeah, sure. 100%. And that's where most people are. They don't care about understanding mysticism, because mysticism is just the study of the mystery. And the mystery is what's outside of your identity and what's outside of your filters that you don't know. Mm-hmm. But most people are like, nope, I like my filters because there are 4 walls. But you can also liken that to a dog, in that some dogs, when you crate train them, when they're afraid, they run to their crate. It's like a cage. You'd think that they'd be crazy. They don't want to be in there. No. But they love their crate. It's so safe. I know where the walls are, and no one can hurt me, right? And again, that happens because, you know, this world isn't easy. So that's the first degree, Hylic.
And that's person. The ego too, wanting to feel safe all the time. Or yes, but also the id. If you're using the id will do that as well. Mm-hmm. Now, then you get the second degree, which was called the psychic, which means these are the people who can pick up the book and go, I mean, I know the words it's using, but I think it's describing something a little more profound. Right. A little more, right? So the mind is starting to open up. The mind is starting to get more like extrapolate. Wait. Well, would you say that like the pineal gland or the pituitary gland or something else is happening that is opening 100%, something up?
100%, 100% in that way.
Yeah.
But you could probably even connect that more to the prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
Having more executive function, because so the Hylic is generally in a survival mode most of their life.
So it's just reptilian brain and
they're very dirt poor, usually not a lot of available nervous system. I want to eat. I want to have sex. I just want to get along. I need the best rims because that will make sure people think I'm cool, so they'll leave me alone. Like a lot of these things people think is vain. It isn't. It's actually just armor. Right. An illusionary armor so that you think I'm cool. So, you know, like, you know, if you look at the civil unrest today, if you ask half these people about the ideology they espouse, they don't know a goddamn thing about it.
That's true.
But if they don't say it, they're not going to be part of that tribe of monkeys. Yes, they're not going to be part of that troop. Those baboons aren't going to love me. And those bonobos aren't going to touch me. And so they espouse these goddamn ideologies simply out of virtue signaling.
And
but they have no idea.
I think it's also youthfulness, you know, like, you know, when you reach your teens, you start become like a tribal animal, don't you think? And that you have to fit
more
in.
So than ever. Yeah, because first off, that you know, the limbic brain's like paid and late.
Totally. And all the hormones are like this too. Yeah. So it's like it's you know, I always think that, you know, this idea of you know, a creation that is somehow, you know, has some forethought to it, you know, just seems to me at age 13 to do that to kids, you know, you know, to pump that much testosterone into them or that much estrogen. It doesn't seem, you know, very wise, but it's what we do. It's what we have. It's what we have to go through.
But if you're only going to live 25 years, maybe.
True.
You know what? Yes. Like when people are like, teenage pregnancy is so much of a problem. We've been around for maybe 300,000 to 500,000 years, and almost 98.999% of the time it's been teenagers having babies because nobody lived that long. Calm the hell down, Crutchy.
Yeah, 14, 15 years old. Yeah. That's true.
So that's the psychic. Now, the third degree happened when people started to go deep enough into the mystery. or the occult, which is just the hidden stuff. And it's not hidden in the way that originally it was never hidden because people didn't want you to know. It was because it was not self-evident. It was not obvious that this is what was happening. Mm-hmm. So it was hidden from you. It's the thing that you've been hiding from yourself.
Right.
Originally. Eventually it became associated with hiding from other people, because if you believe that heresy, you were burned at the goddamn stake. Anybody wants to know what I mean? Look up the life of Giordano Bruno. He died. He was burned at the stake in 1600. Go ahead and take a look at his life. We know about Martin Luther and his Reformation, but very few people know. But it was the same type of Reformation. Giordano Bruno.
So when did he live?
I think it was 1543 to 1600. And he was preaching that Christianity was in fact not new, and it was in fact, was really paganism. The real orthodoxy was the Egyptian mystery schools.
Right,
and
right. Yeah,
they burned his ass alive for that. Yeah. Now,
I heard a saying once: you scratch a Christian and there's a pagan, or something like that underneath.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, they killed the Cathars in the Albigensian Crusade, and the Cathars were Gnostics. They killed the Cathars in the Albigensian Crusade, and the Cathars lived more of a Christian life than the Christians.
Right.
And this is not a bash Christians thing, because the Christians of today and the Christians of those days are not the same. Just because they use the same word does not mean they're the same people. So I'm not disparaging anything.
Yeah, but what you're saying here, I just want to say, when you're talking about Bruno, is that his name? That he was coming from a place of knowing because of the experience.
He had gnosis, yes.
And the other side wanted him to come from a place that was just faith-based, that was just have faith, because we tell you.
Right, so that's the next step. So after a psychic, if you go far enough, then you would have, it could be called the Arcanum Arcanorum, it can be called the Nadon, it can be called the Way of the Heart. You can call it anything you want. But what it was is you sat and did the prescribed breathing, you did the prescribed, could be prayers, it could be a lot of things. And you went through this process and you sat and you did not move. And it was basically, you had to come to a place that's like gnosis or bust. That's it. I will either know or I will die.
Right.
And so once you had that experience, it was so powerful that it transformed everything. Now, this knowing isn't the same as, okay, I read all of it, so I know it. No, you don't know shit.
It's not.
It's the same as I can read all about having babies, but until I have one come out of my body, I don't know shit.
Exactly.
Same thing. That's right. That's what gnosis is.
Exactly.
And so once you became a Gnostic, you needed no more priest. You needed no more intercession. Gnostics believe that they are a spark of the divine, and ergo, they do not need intercession or intermediary between them and the divine. Now, when Cyril got a hold of that concept, Cyril said, we're not having that shit. And then eventually into the Council of Nicaea, where it became, they got rid of gnosis and put faith. So they're what they want, hylics, because that's where you get your money. You want psychics, because that's where you get your theologians who can literally rationalize any goddamn thing you want them to rationalize. But then you take away the person knowing and you put faith. Because if a person has to live by faith, if you have to take my word for it,
exactly,
and you won't get the actual confirmation of anything until you're dead, which is good for everybody, isn't it? Now you're living in an afterlife and you're perfectly happy. Yeah, but what good does it do you? And so the process of faith was put in because people think, oh, it's a control of the church. Yes, you can say that. It's not technically wrong, but it's slovenly. It's slovenly thinking. How many people
don't you think that also there's some people that, as you said, that first level, right?
Yeah, the hierarchy.
Who faith is all they can really muster, and they're trusting someone else. What you're talking about is two different types of things. One is something that you believe outside yourself because somebody else told you, just like a child will believe everything that their parents tell them, like there's a Santa Claus, right? And the other one is internal.
Wait, there's not? God damn it.
Okay, this is, don't let any kids watch this. Don't let your kids in. And then the other is all purely internal, which the way you describe it and the way I've experienced it, and I'm sure you have, is that it's a shitload of work, man. You know, like, it's like nobody is going to do it for you. You know, if you don't do the sitting, nobody's going to be sitting. And if you don't do all of that, nobody's going to do it. The other one is like, just give me a certificate, man, and let me graduate, right? You know, sort of
But not
outside.
only that, you've got a construct where, look, you don't have to do anything. Somebody already died and suffered horribly. All the bad things.
Exactly, yeah.
All you got to do now is just have faith. And it's automatically good times, Charlie. Oh, it's amazing. And so, but, and some people will say, you know, that was just a manipulation by the church. And again, don't think the church and the government were different. They were the same thing.
Right.
So, but here's the problem. Here's a dirty secret that most people who want to be like, damn the man tried to keep us down. No, nobody was doing that goddamn work anyways. Because like you said, it's a lot of work. And there's a chance you're going to go crazy, homicidal, or you'll die.
Yep, exactly.
Facts.
And those have happened to many, many people who have done it. Yeah. So
100%.
It's yeah. And the other part of it is that, you know, there's a lot of people and they need to be, there needs to be at least some semblance
of structure.
Structure. So, having something faith-based is a really good way of doing it, because people follow that.
There's nothing wrong with it, because you can say whatever you want about Christianity, but let's just be real. The Enlightenment and everything we know that works in terms of, because let's look at all the civil unrest around the world. This happens because people have broken down Judeo-Christian structures. I'm not saying you got to go sit in your fast and testimony meeting and I know this church is true. I love my mommy and dad. I ain't necessarily saying you have to go that far, but let's just be honest. Don't steal your neighbor's shit. Don't sleep with his wife. Don't go get a blowjob in the town square. Like, crazy as it sounds, that's actually, in fact, all Judeo-Christian things. And it doesn't mean they don't have blowjobs. That's puritanical. It just means don't be stupid and think that self-will can run riot and there's no repercussions.
Right.
So if you look at the 10 Commandments and even going on to the Beatitudes or any of those things, you have to understand that society is always one generation from complete fucking breakdown and chaos.
It's true.
It's always, and you can see it playing out.
It's amazing sometimes I think that we've done as well as we have, considering, you know,
you
like
have no clue. I've been in other parts of the world where there are still slave auctions and slave labor, and you're like, does this really seem like a good idea? And they're like, this is what God wants. I'm like, God wants you to enslave other people? Well, yeah. All right, bruh. I mean, and so, yes, we're not the nicest of species. We're not a bad species either. The problem is people don't understand the context of the world they live in. The Gnostics have dualism, and people think dualistic meaning good and bad. They don't mean good and bad the way that people think. It's just outsiders will never really understand. But it's the same way as Taoism and yin and yang.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's yin and yang, but they're not separate. It's Tai Chi. Yin and yang are just dual aspects of the same thing, like matter and energy. Well, the Gnostics believe in a God of this world and a God of light, or king of light, God of the light world, which they call. So the God of this world is called Rex Mundi. That one's called Rex Lux, God of light. And Rex Mundi, he's a real bastard, let me tell you. And the whole point is get your shit done here so that you can actually rest and begin to progress there. But the point of working it out here was you can't work it out there. There's no change there. It's eternal. Eternity means no change. And so you've got to have a place where change can happen if you're going to change. And so it's about the universe coming to know itself, right? There's the big, in the beginning, there was the Ruach Kadosh, the Holy Spirit. And now there's an empty space that things can fill and stuff can happen. And now the exhale is breathing the Ruach Kadosh, the Holy Spirit, the breath of life, into the things so they can happen. This is the Gnostics' view on that.
So let me now juxtapose it with Taoism, and we talk about what are the beginnings and cosmology of Tao.
Okay, so in the beginning, for both really, but it's different for the Western versus the Eastern based on binary code. The East believes in nothing. The West believes in one. Mm-hmm. So until the Arabs brought Arabic numerals with the number 0, mm-hmm. You go to the Roman or the Hebrew or any of these languages, all their languages, every letter has a numerical value, right? That's what gematria is. You count it out. So Roman numerals, LVX, but that's also, L is 50, V is 5, and X is 10, right? And so you have this thing where you're like, okay, all right, hold on here. You've got this that everything had to start with something in the West. But in the East, no, everything has to start with nothing. Nothing is what gives birth to something. Logos, what? Wait, what do you mean? How can you get something from nothing? I've got a cup. It's got nothing in it. How can I pour you something if there's nothing in it? It's like, oh, we have to define the word nothing. Nothing doesn't mean a vacuum. Nothing doesn't mean empty as in vacuous. Empty means everything undifferentiated, which means there's no thing. It's everything, which makes it no thing. Mm-hmm. The only reason why there are things is because there's space in between, the emptiness in between. Mm-hmm. But what if every proton, electron, and neutron, and everything in between were all undifferentiated mass, energy? That would be crazy. So that would be nothing. And from that nothing is called Wu-Ji, or vast emptiness, or vast nothingness. But why would you call nothingness vast? Because it's literally, according to physics, you could fit everything in the universe on the head of a pin, and then in less than a second, like in a billionth of a second, it shot to the proportions that we call the universe today.
Which is, would you say infinite or just vast?
Yes, it's infinite, because mm-hmm. some of the math says that the universe is doubling 1 million times every second.
No shit.
So you could never. So by our ability to travel and or conceive of things, by the time it takes you to have a thought with the synapse, it's already doubled how many times? So for you, it's ad infinitum. It's yeah. Let's just call it infinitum.
Yeah.
Okay. And so why did it explode? Why did it go from this to this? Okay. So first there's the Wu-Ji. It's not moving. It's not differentiated. So it's nothing. There's no one to even view it. So it definitely is nothing. Right? And then eventually, so what made that happen? So you say the Tao passed through it. The Tao being the way. So, okay, so where did the Tao come from? Mm. The Tao was there before the Wu-Ji. Okay, but who made the Tao, Lao? Ted Nugent. It was Ted Nugent. He was in his Jesus clothes. He had cat scratch fever. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, but it was the Nugent.
Oh my God.
It was Uncle Ted. It's facts. No.
The gospel according to Lao.
I'm pretty sure they would burn me at the stake. Still to this day. Okay. But so, as my 9-year-old say, so truthfully, so correct me truthfully, Papa. Okay, I'll tell you the correct truthfully. Anyways, but so the Tao is not a person, it's not a thing. It is all thing and nothing simultaneously. So your heart beats. That's the Tao, because hearts beat. It's the way. Your synapse fire. That's the way. You get pissy and become a petty bitch. That's the way. Like there's none of these things are not the way, because it's how things work. So what made this go? Because that's the way. So the Tao passed through, meaning, and you can say the Tao passed through could be, you know, 3 ladies in red, yellow, and blue cowls and saying bibbity bobbity boo. I don't give a fuck. It's all a concept. But the point is at that moment when everything becomes a little bit coherent and sort of it's bouncing at the same, you get what's called reverse gravity. Gravity pulls things up. Reverse gravity shoots things infinitely faster than you could possibly imagine. Now, that's a scientific way of looking at it, but it's still the way. It doesn't change anything because you understand a mechanism. It's no less mysterious because you cannot understand that.
But let me ask you about the way. So, you know, there's a question that I think, you know, everybody comes up against at some point is like, okay, well then why is there evil, or why is there bad things? If, you know, God is good, why is there bad things? Is it just humans that are bad? Or like, you know, and you're talking about we're all coming from the same place. So,
So there's no bad, there's no evil, but there's bad and evil. So it has to be a paradox or it doesn't exist, and especially in Taoism. So once the Wuji expands, the Tao's pass through. Now there's Taiji, meaning yin and yang. That's the Tai Chi circle.
The yin and yang
the yin
symbol.
Yang. Right, it's the Taiji, meaning that there's yin, substance, there's things, and then there's function, which is yang. So your heart, the tissue itself is yin, that's the yang.
Right.
So you could say within a millionth of a second, the Higgs boson touched, and now you have matter, and you can say all that. I mean, it fits, but evil. Once you get yin and yang, then you get heaven, man, and earth, meaning the different states of the same thing. Yeah. And then from heaven, man, and earth to 10,000 things come. We happen to be that as well. Now
the 10,000 things, just so people know, isn't just mean like only 10,000. it's just a term to say like everything, right? Yeah,
it's just a metaphor for everything. Instead of counting everything, let's just go to 10,000. That seems good. Let's have some baijiu.
Yeah. Estimate it.
Right. Now, is there good and evil? No. But of course. What does that mean? If you look into things in an absolute way, the universe is going to go through heat death and everything's going to die horribly. Supernovas are growing red giants are going so big that it's consuming planets, and if there's any life or proto-life, it's being destroyed and genocided. Are these all cataclysmic things of an evil God? No. They're called the way. It's natural. Genocides are natural. All of them are natural. They're unpleasant as shit. They're not nice as shit. And people don't understand that if you look at the context of the universe you're born into, you have no idea of the context of the universe you're born into. Why is there war? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but they're really not that complex. They're not sexy either, and they're kind of inflammatory because people don't like to hear this. But like, for example, if you have a book, and let's say your book says that you're not allowed to have sex with your mom, your sister, your aunt, your dad's wife, your grandma, your daughter, or any of these people, but the one person leaves out is your first cousin. You're allowed to have sex and marry your first cousin. Well, even though God may be okay with it, genetically there's still problems with it, because when people who are first cousins have sex, they're the same genetic material as half sister and brother.
Right.
And therefore, genetically, the amygdala, which is responsible for fear and for aggression, becomes overdeveloped. Ergo, you get really superstitious, and anybody doesn't believe your superstition, you fucking kill them. Now,
you're talking about inbreeding breeds war. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, if anybody says that saying it along the religious lines are just too inflammatory, let's look at the crowns and kings and queens of fucking Europe over the centuries. They're all inbred. Who are the most bloodthirsty assholes that you ever seen?
The ones who marry.
They're all inbreds. They're always branched because divine right and King David's line or whatever. It's bullshit. But the fact of the matter is, genetics are genetics.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I try not to go more to science. I tend more to go to spiritual. They're no different, Sweet Pea. They're no different. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you're getting is not evil. It's the result of people doing shit that they have no idea how things work. They're not interested in learning how it works. Just make it all nice and make Bambi not die. And they live this very Disney-fied existence where they think good and evil is easy to understand because Maleficent, she was evil, but Sleeping Beauty was so good. Why is Sleeping Beauty good? Fuck she do. And if you understand that story, the story, that's actually a Gnostic mystical tale. Yeah,
tell us how is this a mystical tale?
So if you go back to, as I said about Kabbalah, Kabbalah is the best way to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the good king and queen, which represent Sophia and understanding.
Okay. And Sophia means wisdom, right?
Right.
Okay.
So she's the divine queen, and her husband is the divine king, and they have twins, a prince and a princess. But the princess, when she's little, she's taken away from her goodly family, and she's raised amongst the common people, the fiefs. So she never knows of her true royal divine heritage.
Which is who all we are, right?
And she's got this evil stepmother who's not her real mother, but an evil stepmother. And this evil stepmother is like, oh, you're going to wear cinders and you're going to do this and do that. And it's all, and the evil stepmother is always ugly.
So wait a minute. What, I thought Sophia was the mother. She's not? Where does
Sophia's the mother. I'm talking about the ugly stepmother.
So how does the ugly stepmother get into this? Does Sophia leave? And
No. Remember, the daughter is taken from her parents.
And she lives with the evil stepmother.
Right.
Oh, okay, great. Okay,
she doesn't know that. She doesn't know that she's the princess.
Okay, all right.
But the prince, he longs for his princess. He misses her so much. And don't do that whole incest shit. It's a damn Gnostic mystical fairy tale. It's her brother.
Okay, all right, okay.
And so he eventually comes, and with love's true kiss, she wakes up and she remembers. And then they go have babies.
So this is all internal alchemy.
Yes. It always has been.
Yeah.
It always has been. And these stories were told circa 800, 900. Yeah.
That is so amazing.
Well, listen to the stories of the troubadours, and you'll realize where the Grimm's fairy tales come from. And then you'll realize where Disney fairy tales come from. It's the same thing. All they are is they're telling you the story of cosmology, of how everything began. So, yeah, so evil.
And that's why myths they affect us, and especially as children, they are really part of our growing, as Campbell,
and Jung both. Yeah.
He really got that. Yeah.
Because
we really need them as a society.
We have to have them, because if you do not have them, you cannot understand that the cognitive prefrontal executive part of us understands concepts that comes through verbal and audio and visual mediums. But that party that you're trying to wake up in the internal alchemy, or have the gnosis, that doesn't understand words. It only understands symbols. Mm-hmm. That's why it's not, the words aren't important of the fairy tale. It's the symbols. Mm-hmm. Every little girl wants to be the one that the prince chooses to wake her up. And so some people think, well, I don't want to be no stupid princess. I'm not vain like that. It's like, you're missing the story, Sweet Pea. Mm-hmm. You're taking human dynamics or whatever culture you're in and transposing it wrongly. This is something extraordinarily abstract, macrocosmic. Big scales.
And this is the energies within you that wake you up. The
gnosis.
keeping you awake. Yeah.
And so that's what these ideas are about. And so, when you're practicing any of these things, or you're doing any of these things, what you start to see, you start to experience, is that the world that you live in doesn't have good or evil. It has people who tell stories because that's how we were programmed. And in the story, the shit I don't like, the shit that makes me afraid, the shit that's hard, that's evil.
And you were talking about recently the idea that we give everything meaning. So we're the ones who
Everything.
give it meaning. It's
Yep.
empty, right? And then we give it
You
meaning.
see, so it's all Wuji still.
Yeah.
It never really changed. It's just the viewer changed. So you say, okay, but what about, I heard of a woman, she had a little kid and that kid was murdered. Yeah. So that's not evil. I mean, if you're the kid's mom, it is.
Right.
But that's because your heart's broken. But let me ask you a question. In every goddamn species on this planet, regardless, how many children ever actually live? Does it mean that you should be happy or not care? Oh, I didn't say that. And please don't take your heartbreak and feelings to mean that I'm somehow the devil, although I get made the devil a lot. I just don't give a fuck.
Well, you have kids, I have kids, so we both know it's not an easy thing to think about.
But the fact of the matter, you're right. And I had twins and I lost twins in my life. But the thing is how many species are constantly losing children? And it's not to mean that you shouldn't care. It just means that you have to accept children die. Not just old people after a full, long, loving life surrounded by their families, saying goodbye and go to sleep. So that's all fucking great. But you know how many people actually get that versus the car accident, getting mauled by the bear, getting kids getting lymphoma? This is the real world you live in. And you can say that's evil, but it's not evil because it has to exist. All the things that you hate and call evil have to exist, or else reality can't exist. And people say,
God is evil.
Right. And the thing is, well, okay, so how can you say that it has to exist?
Yeah.
How can, well, if somebody tells me God is evil or there's a devil, I always say your God's too small. Your world is too small if you still have good, which is everything you want, and
All
evil,
right.
which is everything you don't.
Then let me ask you about this question. And I know we're getting close to the hour, so there's just like so much to ask you still. So like in the Nag Hammadi, it talks about the archons. It talks about Sophia giving birth to, something that wasn't of God. And
Abraxas.
An archon, or Samael or Belial, or what are they? So there is, in that idea that there was something that wasn't quite right, that didn't actually come from God, that created this world. And like even people talk about, there were Anunnaki who came to the world and changed people. And
Sure.
we're talking about the beginnings of humans. What are your thoughts on some of those in 5 minutes? And we can pick it up at another time. But
it's easy to understand. Most of the people who came out with those stories are people who hadn't reached the gnosis.
Who what?
Who hadn't reached the gnosis.
Okay.
So let's say Jesus had reached the gnosis. Anybody who wants to really kind of understand that whole story, read the Templar Revelation by Lynn Picknett and Clive Prince. And if you read it, don't get pissed off at me. I didn't write it. But it tells you, it's a very good case study into a lot of this. But if you look at Jesus and you say, okay, Jesus had reached the gnosis, he was the Christos. Great. Okay, great. You notice he never railed against evil? Never noticed Buddha never railed against evil? Lao Tzu never railed against evil? And here's the reason why. Once you reach the gnosis, you realize the truth about evil. Evil is not evil. When you're afraid or you hate something, you call that evil. Your fear or hate of something has nothing to do with evil being evil. People who talk about the Anunnaki, which is Samaria, or when you get people who talk about, like you said, the Piss of Sophia and Abraxas and Samael, and funny enough, Samael and Belial, God loved them. God made Samael the God of, or the Lord of the seventh heaven while he lived in the fifth heaven with God. So that's God doesn't hate Samael. And if you ask me, or some people say to me, no, if it's not of God, it's of the devil. Okay, so if God made everything, what isn't of God? Go ahead, I'll wait. I'll fucking wait. Go ahead. Because if you tell me, well, God didn't make that, so God's not all powerful then. You want to be the one to say it's God's not powerful? Go on record. I dare you. I fucking dare you to go on record saying God's not all powerful. Go ahead. I bet you don't get invited to the Relief Society potluck. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, how does anything, if God is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, how in fact can anybody begin to tell me then that somehow anything can happen without God's will? But again, you want to tell me, well, you can look around. Okay, so your point of view, your vantage point is sufficient enough. You're going on record and saying your vantage point is sufficient enough that you have an omniscient ability to understand how all things work together. Go ahead, I'll wait. I got shit to do. Yeah. I bet you don't, though.
Yeah.
And so the
that,
point
that
is
place of where you don't know,
and that's why it said, sure, and that's why it says in the scriptures, judge not. Your judgment is imperfect. Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't have the vantage point. It's why heaven is allegorically considered higher than earth. It's higher. We look at it, well, higher is better. Really? Go live on Everest? Bet your ass don't. But higher means you have a better view of things. Things are in a lot better perspective because you're farther and more elevated. Ergo, you have a more objective and more understanding point of view of your terrain. That's why these symbols are used. All mystics come from the same land and speak the same language, which is symbolism. That's it.
So we have 1 minute left, and I could just, eat up another hour with you. But the last question I'm going to ask you, and again, we can continue some of this, is why are we here then? Why have this existence when it's so effing hard?
It's not hard. What's hard is we resist every goddamn thing. When people tell me, Lao, it's so hard to accept. No, that's your problem. You just said your problem right there. You can't accept shit. You can't accept anything. And life is always hard for people who can't accept the way things are, right? A hard head makes a soft ass every day. That was from my mom. That wasn't some Taoist immortal. That was my mom. And
well,
even though I was
Taoist immortal, she might be.
I mean, Lord knows I was sitting on a cloud drinking Wuji, juice, eating universe cookies, and was completely a perfect child, of course. But nonetheless, she felt need to tell me a hard head makes a soft ass, right? So let me check. I got to check in with a student in Romania. If you're still available, it'll take about 30 minutes or whatever.
Okay, I'll just pause this then, and we'll come right back. All right?
Okay.
Just text me when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Done.
Where are you now? I love that.
In the Alexandria Library.
Oh my, are you serious?
No.
You just transported yourself there?
John the Baptist and Mary Magdalene, the Vitruvian Man.
Is this in your office?
Yeah, this is my office.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah. So, I just talked with this wonderful girl. She's in Hungary. Oh, sweetest thing in the whole world. I love these people. She looks 20 years old. She's 31. I'm like, shut the front door. What are you doing? She's like, eating junk food. I'm like, yes.
So
but don't worry. Jesus died for her, so it's perfectly okay.
All right. Well, where we left off was you were telling us why we're here.
Yeah. So how esoteric do you want to go and how practical do you want to go?
Let's go practical first and then let's go esoteric because, I like that side too.
Sure. So practical first. We're here for one reason and one reason alone. To live. Life is a verb. It's not a noun or an adjective. It's a verb. We're here to live. And the problem with life is that most people aren't willing to accept life on its own terms. They want life to be on their terms. And so practically, you're here to live. You're not here to live forever. You're not here to be the most beautiful girl at the prom. You're here to exist. And you're here to learn. And you're here to understand. And you do not learn and understand. You do not reach gnosis without experiencing all of it. And the parts you don't like are not indicative that the thing that you don't like is wrong. It's just indicative that you don't like it. And if you can get past yourself And you can say, well, I mean, the reality is I have a lot of hangups and a lot of, okay, you're not living, you're existing. Stop existing, start living. Now, does that mean throw caution to the wind, devil may care attitude? No, don't be dumb. I said this is the practical one. It means if you want to wear a wedding dress with soccer shoes and a football helmet, go ahead, sweet pea. Get after it, do your thing. But it's about you coming to understand yourself in your life and what's for you and what's not. We call that learning your Tao.
So
Right?
when you're saying living, you're not taking it in sort of this sort of term of like go out and live, jump off a cliff, skydive, or you're really just saying like be in your life.
Yes, 100%. Now, it can be jumping off a building and skydiving if that's your way. Like for you, I don't think that would be a very good way for you, honestly. Because not that you couldn't do it, I just don't think you'd get much out of it. You'd be like, all right, it was fine, just kind of extraneous. Oh. But for me, that's how I find love. I fall in love when I'm just hurtling at the earth at 128 feet per second, quite honestly. I'm like, yeah, yeah. But
So
that's
like
me.
you bring something up because like it's not in my nature to do that. You just said that about me, and it's probably true. Um, I don't feel a need to do that. But there is something about living and fear that we have. At least I know I'll just speak for myself, but I just think as a human nature is that we're afraid to live.
Yes.
And part of it is that we also have tendencies to want to make sure we don't die quickly or easily, so we're gonna protect ourselves, but
Yep.
also we also protect our heart, we protect even our ideas, and it's confusing to try and figure out how can I do things and not be too afraid, or how can I get past and beyond. Do you have some tips on
So
that?
that's easy to explain because it's a clumsiness of words. It's a language that's so clumsy sometimes. So fear is what keeps us from doing stupid stuff to get us killed. For example, the honey badger has no fear. And so it'll take on something, it's 30 pounds. It'll take on something 200, 300, 400 pounds, doesn't care, has no fear. Most of the time it actually wins. Not always, but most of the time. Now, why, when there's fear, people think if I control the world, this is the Benjamin Franklin very famous quote right now. If you trade freedom for security, you'll have neither, or you're worthy of neither, or whatever, however you want to paraphrase it. The fact is the truth is that fear is helpful, but if it rules your life, it's not helpful, because if you think I can control the world and therefore I can nerf my world and get my crate and I'm okay, yeah, you're full of shit. You're going to die horribly. Yeah. And you're going to die never having lived.
So you're saying
Fear,
hiding is not going to get you anywhere, right?
it's going to get you fear. You're going to be living in fear. People who don't hide don't live in fear. So people say to me, but what do I do about the fear, Lao? I'm glad you asked, friend, because I happen to know the vaccine. The vaccine has been developed, in fact, for fear. That vaccine is called competence, skill. The Chinese would call it gong fu, meaning hard-earned skill. So for some people, let's say a 60-year-old, jumping out of a plane might be like, holy shit, that's crazy. And the reason why is they have no competence at that. And so the chances of getting it wrong versus the chance of getting it right and the repercussions if you get it wrong, you see it outweighs it. And so, no. But does that mean that skydiving is dangerous? Walking across the street is dangerous. More people have died walking across the street than skydiving, actually, even though it's a false paradigm because more people walked across the street than skydive. But you get the point.
Yeah.
But the problem with it isn't that life is inherently dangerous. Any animal will tell you babies die in mass numbers, in fact, of any species. And the reason why? Most vulnerable thing on the planet is a baby. And so what do? We get competent people who know how to, take care of the baby. We have a pediatrician, so he's got competence. We find people who have competence, which extends the ability for longevity.
Right.
But the people who live the longest are people who know how to laugh. People who live the longest are people who have a sense of humor. Now, how do you get a sense of humor in all this terror and fear? And the answer is, well, look at Hiroshima. Look at Nagasaki. There are people who are over 100 years old in Japan, which means they were there. They saw it. They were 25 years old. If they're 100 today, they were 25 years old at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. How the fuck they survive? It's nuclear fog. It's going to be terrible. You know what? And I guarantee you, you go ask everybody who survived Hiroshima and Nagasaki, not one got under their desk. It makes me feel like an idiot in school, you know?
I know.
Why was I under a desk? Those people weren't under a desk. Assholes. You got me, Joe McCarthy.
Well, right now we're in this stage right now.
Yeah.
Maybe years later we'll be going, why did I wear that?
I'll tell you why. Because people have no competence at virology. They don't understand it. I don't wear this because I'm afraid. I wear this because there's possibility it might work, and there's no benefit, there's no cost to me wearing it. But do I want to wear it? Fuck no, I don't care. I really don't care. Like I care. I don't care. And the reason why is because I've been through a lot of pandemics. Because in this country, we're like, oh, the pandemic's like, have you ever been to Cambodia? Have you ever been to, Azerbaijan? Yeah, calm down with your goddamn.
I always notice when I go to my nail salon, during the flu season, the first people to put on the mask are the Vietnamese. When you're going there, everybody's got a mask on.
But if you go to Vietnam, they're always wearing masks. You know why? Because they don't want to be dark. They want to stay pale and.
Oh, that's true. There's something about that, and the thing over the head. But yeah.
But that's the thing. Everybody wants the world to be softer, be nicer. And what will happen is the world will get more and more afraid. Right? Tough times make strong people. Strong people make prosperous times. Prosperous times make weak people. Mm-hmm. Weak people make tough times.
Right. So what you're talking about, to bring it back to the antidote for fear, is ability.
Yeah, skill.
So you're sitting in your house, and let's just make it something really simple, like you're an agoraphobic, okay? And just to even go start your car is a big deal.
Sure.
So let's just say it that way, because that's an extreme. But how does one get from fear to, I got the ability to do that?
Simple, step by step. First off, don't make any goal about it. Do what you can when you can. So, a lady who was agoraphobic. Literally, I just one day woke up and was like, I can't go outside my house. So, I used to have a practice called the impossibles. Not the impossibles. No, it was called the. Oh. Just slipped my tongue. Indomitables. The Indomitables practice is what it was. And so I used to take people and say, if you have a problem that nobody else has ever been able to fix, give me a call. Because I'll do unorthodox things. I understand that it's always just a process. This woman had been shut in for years, like decades. And it's like, okay, so I wanted you to do me a favor. I want you to open your garage door. I'm going to pull in. I'm going to come out, leave the car running. I'm going to put you in a blindfold. I'm going to take you out to the car. So why am I in a blindfold? Because your house has been effectively fucking a blindfold for decades. So let's just keep going with the blindfold theme, because we don't want to overstimulate you. See, the reason why people they get so afraid is because they're overstimulated. You got to keep the energy low.
Right.
Get her in the car. So I'm gonna put you in, and I put her in a compression suit, which pushes the body in, right? And so put the blindfold on. I said, no, we're just gonna drive. I don't want you to think of anything. I literally just want you Just sit there and feel your body. You did that in your house, nothing changed. And so going side to side, switching lanes, speeding up, slowing down. And it's a lot of stimulation. It's like, calm down. When all you got to do is breathe. And we'd already been talking for a lot. Then it was like, okay, now got her to a place called Skydive Houston. Pulled up, put her in a harness, took off her blindfold. She's like, what are we doing? I'm like, they took her, picked her up, put her on a plane, jumped out of the goddamn.
Were you with her?
No, I wasn't. I was on the ground. Fuck that. I've skydived a lot, but the guy who was skydiving, who had her tandem, he's a master.
So he went with her?
Yeah, you have to do, your first one has to be tandem anyways, but he was a big burly guy, so it's like I'm having a mountain jumping with you. And they jumped. And here's what happened.
Oh, I want to just cry thinking about it.
Well, she did. She did at the beginning. She was like, no. And he's like, look, there's only one way down, baby. And because she's attached to him, it's not like, and when they jumped, the first thing that happens is you go, you can't breathe when you're going because you're going too fast. Then you're kind of like, and now the brain is really on overload. And this is good. You need the brain to get on overload. And the reason why is all the extraneous shit will go out to the side. Then you pull the chute. And they're not jumping very high, 15,000 feet. So you jump, pull the chute, and when it does, everything becomes absolutely still and quiet. It's so peaceful that people who, like, when people think skydivers are crazy, if you do Zen meditation, skydive is exactly the same. You have this really, really intense, and it's so peaceful. And then the world, you're so high, the world looks calm. The world looks static. The world looks completely docile. The world, it's amazing. So what you're doing is you're changing perspectives. And so the brain gets this reset, like, and then afterwards she hit the ground. When they got to the ground, she came running and gave me this huge hug. She works on the 10th floor of the building downtown, on a 40-story building. She works on the 10th floor.
That's amazing.
Now, I wouldn't do that with just anyone. I had a really good, strong rapport with her. And I had talked to her for a long time. See, the problem with it is people go, oh, I could never do it. No, if you don't get the competence, you never will do anything. And sometimes the competence, that's why it's called Gong Fu. It means hard-earned skill. You've got to do hard-earned. When the painter is painting, and they've had thousands of hours and the carpet on, they're throwing shit away, and they're angry, and they're crying, and they're going through the dark night of the soul, they're getting Gong Fu. The person who cuts hair and can just a few cuts do amazing things, they've got Gong Fu. But it comes at a high price.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
it takes a long time to be master at anything.
But the thing is life requires that. And you've got only as long as you got, maybe 80 years, maybe 8 days. I don't know. But if you don't get that competence, you can't make it.
Yeah. This
world will eat you alive, and it's designed to eat you alive. You know, we have problems with reality a lot of times. And this happens a lot in most traditions. And you get this sort of scapegoat. There's a devil. The devil made this. You know, it's like you take
There's that devil in me, and the devil tempted me, and I did it. That kind of thing.
Which is a way to say I don't have to take personal responsibility for that. I may have be part devil my damn self. So I should probably learn about that devil and gain competence with that devil. Yeah. The best masculinity is a man who's completely dangerous, knows it, and has learned to master that. And so now he can be the most loving, kind person in the world.
Interesting.
But nobody ever goes through this danger. Nobody goes through that competency.
So one of the things that come to my mind, there were a few things when I was trying to write my book, and I've never written a book before, and I'm not a writer, and you know, all those skills were so not there. And one of the things that I heard is like, get comfortable with discomfort. And the other was when you haven't done, when you're attempting to do something that you've never done before, you're going to have to do things that you've never done before. And I think that so often we and because we live in such an opulent society where things are handed to us, you know, all the time, so much entertainment, so much, you know, leisure time, all of that. You know, when things are hard, we think something is wrong. When we attempt something the first time and we suck at it, we think, well, I'm going to be bad at it. You know, like we don't think that there's a next step.
Yeah. We've lied to ourselves too long.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because
afraid of it. Yeah.
so you look
So,
at,
so I asked a boy out when I was in 7th grade. I didn't really ask him that. I just said I liked him, and he had a response that I didn't like. I wasn't even really sure what the response is. Like, who, you know, what 13-year-old boy knows how to respond to anything? And that was it. That was the one time, and we were done. I was like, never going to try that one again. You know, it's sort of like that.
yeah, if you think about Instagram and all, if you go on there, what you normally find are 20-year-olds and they're having this opulent life and all. It's like, you can't even wipe front to back properly. Shut up. Like, you know, a goddamn thing, 20 years old. Are you kidding me? But they have to have that image. They're curating an image. And so it's all a lie. And it always will be a lie. And so the world that you live in is already a lie, meaning the way that you take in information in your world isn't reality. That's why you want to have the gnosis. But now you've got
we're becoming civilized by the thoughts, the meanings that our society bring to, like, that picture behind you. We have a certain meaning for it, depending on what side of the scale you're on, and, you know, on both sides, right? Oh, you were talking about that image, I think, the last time. Yes. Yeah. So, like, you know, this image, certainly people would have, you know, judgments about them, good or bad. And so whatever our paradigm of learning growing up, it might be, you know, I got one set and I said, no, that's not for me. And so I went to something else. So it doesn't even matter who taught you, you're going to believe something.
Right. But now, so the gnosis is going to unbelieving, meaning stop taking the map for the terrain. But
Right.
now in the world with social media, people have a lie within a lie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if I don't get 1,000 likes on the gram, I'm not good. It's like, you know, unfortunately, there's a mechanism. Nobody really wants this mechanism, but I'm a Taoist, so I live in the real world. You know, one of the things we have no real understanding of is what to do with mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Like, there's no structure. We talk so much about, we got to stop the suicides and we got to stop it's all mental illness, but nobody knows what to do except for put them in the fucking attic. That's pretty much what we've done forever. Just put them in the crazy in the attic.
Or pump them up with some drugs.
So we don't know what to do with that.
But in Taoism, we look at the emotions and organs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, interesting story is that most of these people are imposing sort of a self-imposed mental illness by thinking, I've got to have X, got to look a certain way. Even though, you know, Marie Claire, nobody really looks like that. I got to look that way. And people do stupid things to hurt themselves to look like that, because that's a mental illness, right? It's a self-imposed or acquired dysmorphia type thing, right? Well, if you look in nature, you never notice that there's not too many mentally ill or retarded things in nature, like mentally retarded, Down syndrome. You notice that doesn't really exist too much. Do you know why? Because nature cleans that shit out at birth. I'm not saying we should go, Jenna, please don't go, Lao advocates. No, I'm saying that's how the shit works. If a child is born mentally ill or whatever in the wild, that parent will kill that animal. And the reason why is you can't afford the cost of the calories that the thing's going to have to consume. You can't afford to be watching it and looking after it all the time, because you got predators that are trying to eat your ass, much less them, and they're never going to be able to take care of themselves or survive. Now, that's a hard thing. And people are like, that's so, nature's so harsh. No, nature's not harsh. That's just how shit works.
Very realistic. Yeah, it's just realistic. Yeah.
And so when things start going in that direction, it has a natural tendency to eliminate itself.
Okay, so this is what comes to my mind when you say that, and that is that, you know, animals don't have as much a frontal lobe developed as humans. We somehow got something different than animals. We're part animal, but we're also part something else that's humane. So that part, I think, like, there is a part of us that has such deep compassion that we are willing even to sacrifice our own lives for
Yep.
someone else.
Sure.
And so speak to that in terms of what you were just saying about the animal kingdom and the human kingdom.
So we've learned tolerance, right? You can say, oh, the government is so evil, and look what they're doing to these poor protesters. And you can say the poor protesters are stupid ideologues and they're blah, blah, blah. You can say all you want. But the fact of the matter is if you took this shit 100 years ago, those protesters would have all been murdered. When those protesters think that they're somehow fucking oppressed, they're burning, looting, and all that. I'm not saying whether they should or not. I'm not making any decisions. I'm just telling you that's what the fuck is happening. Go look at the property damage bill. But the fact of the matter is nobody shot those people fucking wholesale. And any other time in history, those people would have been shot fucking wholesale as an insurrection. They'd all
right
be dead.
now, if they were in China, they probably would be, or some other place.
Oh, they would. Not might be. They would be. Ask the Uyghurs. The Uyghurs are being literally buzzed, shaved, put on railroad cars, sent to concentration camps, and sterilized. We talk about 1944 when we opened up Auschwitz. We're like, we'll never forget. Well, the Uyghurs are like, well, I think you forgot.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, but you're Muslim Chinese,
because they're Muslim. Yeah, exactly.
They're Chinese. So people are really. Again, what do? You can't care about the whole world. We're not built for that. We didn't evolve for that. But so yeah, there's a place for this, and so there is a lot of compassion. The world is 1,000 times better today than it was 100 years ago, and 1,000 times better than it was the 100 before that. The problem is we don't really need real problems, so we're making a whole bunch of goddamn problems.
We're too spoiled, really, aren't we? Yeah.
There's a great book called by a guy named Jonathan Haidt. He runs the Heterodox Academy.
I know him. Yep.
The Coddling of the American Mind.
Yes, exactly.
A phenomenal book.
Yeah.
Right, where it talks about it. So we don't have any real problems. We just make real problems because, what else we got to do? But everything costs. Now, you were talking about compassion for a second. Compassion is like medicine. If you're sick, you should take some medicine. Whether you call it herbal medicine or allopathic, doesn't matter. Take your medicine. But if you get well and you keep taking the medicine, that medicine is now poison. So medicine is not good. Medicine is not bad. It is the context in which you apply it. Same thing with compassion. To say, well, compassion is where you love people and you care deeply about them. What if they want to genocide another group of people? Should I be compassionate towards them? Well, no, that they need to be corrected. Okay, but why are they doing that? Well, because they have these wrong belief systems. Oh, how simplistic. Wonderful. Would you like Bambi and Thumper to come along on that trip? That's not how the world works. The world works because people don't understand psychology and biology. Compassion comes where there is an understanding of homogeneous ways. People always tell me, well, if we could do it like Scandinavia is a bunch of blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall people who got great fucking genes, and there's not a lot of fucking variance. This country has 330 million people who are nothing the hell alike. Nothing. There's nothing homogenous except the fact that nobody's homogenous. That's the only homogenous we got.
And we claim to be homogenous country in terms of like the melting pot. Yeah.
And the fact is we're not a melting pot. We're a federal republic, which means you have 50 different options. If your version of crazy isn't over here, there's 49 other chances to find you're crazy. Me, I can live in most crazy because I understand it's just a brand of crazy, but you're not getting away from crazy, and I got crazy. So I can live me in some Huntsville, Alabama, because I like biscuits. I can go live in Provo and be like, we're here to do, fast and offering collections. Come on in, Junior. I'm going to show you some nudie books.
Right? Your references to Mormonism crack me up.
I can go up to Flushing, Michigan. I can get out there and do some fishing. Hell yeah, I can do all of it because it's just people. But each people have a different worldview. This is what the good thing about living in 50 countries has done.
Yeah.
I can be compassionate because I know that there's no one way that is the way.
That's right. That's right.
Most people think compassion is be nice. You want to know how people get fucking killed? Is they put niceness above reality. And when you try to be nice instead of kind, kindness is I tell you what you need to hear, which is even the truth, even if it's unpleasant. Niceness is I tell you what you want to hear because I don't want you to feel bad.
Right.
When people who are nice value niceness so much, they'll kill other fucking people and feel morally justified because they weren't being nice. And this is the worst problem, is that when you think there's morally justification for your bullshit, and both sides of this civil unrest have this ideology, they're morally justified. When a human believes they're morally justified, they will do some atrocious ass shit. Compassion is simply understanding, listen, if you're a neo-Marxist, God bless you. But if you're like, no, but we're going to proselytize, okay, that's where you're fucked up. Because Marxism doesn't work for everybody. I don't know anybody's really worked for, except for the people who are at the top in other places. Because if you're Marxism works great. Yeah. I got everything, you got nothing. Yeah. But it doesn't work. And so
it ends up looking like capitalism on some level in terms of the haves and haves not. Yeah.
Look at China. And, and it will always be that way, because there's a physics principle called the Pareto distribution. You take all the electrons in a vacuum, they will scatter, but they're going to scatter in a very uneven distribution. It's never going to be
the way it is. That's nature.
That's going to be money. That's going to be sexual selection partners.
All of it.
That's going to be everything. Now, if that's just real, you don't have to like it. You can think it's bad. You can say Rex Mundi. You can say the devil. You can say Dick Cheney. I don't know if there's any difference. You do you. But to me, that's just life, and you have to accept that. Now, how are you going to orient yourself to that? Now, you might be a Quaker. They have the way to orient towards it. You might be a Jain. You can orient that way. You might be a Gnostic. You might be a Taoist. You might be a fucking atheist. It doesn't matter. All they are is how you're going to orient to this very difficult to accept. And it's the only reason why it's difficult is because we're human beings, and we have certain ways that we want to experience the world and need to experience the world. And the universe does not give a shit about your needs. The universe is like, could you do me a favor and just spread your genes and fucking die for me? I mean, and really, could you just get after it?
That's just nature just expressing its vital.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nature, that's nature. Right? Nature.
Yeah.
And so that's really hard, because we're like, no, but Mother Nature's beautiful. You know why she's called Mother Nature? Because she'll whip your ass. That's why. Because she'll whip your ass. She loves you to death. She loves you, and oh my God, but she wants to beat your ass and strangle you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because you brought up this idea of living in your nature. Taoism is about be your nature, and yet there's a great poem by David White that talks about how, the world wants to change you, to live in a world and to be able to say, this is where I stand, this is where I stand. It's very hard. And I think in America right now, we're so polarized. We're talking about yin and yang, that people are having either a hard time saying this is where I stand, or afraid to say this is where I stand, or just feeling a lot of pressure.
Because people feel like they need to make a stand so they feel safe.
Yeah.
The problem is you can't make a stand, because Joe McCarthy made a stand, in the Red Scare. He was a complete dick about it, but nothing he said was wrong. Everybody who said he was a communist, everything he said they wanted, he was right, 100%. It was 100% vetted, but he was just a dick about it. He went about it the wrong way. So he took a stand, though. You say, I respect the people who take a stand. Well, there's your problem, because if you want to fight something, there's only one arena that you can fight things in. It's the arena of better ideas and better behavior.
Yeah.
If you take a stand, you're drawing a line saying, us, them, right. You decide. Now, that's the problem. Life is not static. So if you try to take a stand in a dynamic world, now the world's going to be thrown into chaos. So It's like if they're
So,
in
so
the
that's the yin and the yang going more and more polarized, and the more polarized it is, the more extreme it is, and the more extreme it is, the more violent it is.
right. So if I'm in the rapids, if I'm in the rapids in a river, is it smart to stand up? I'm taking a stand. No, because I'm going to be undercut by the current, probably break my ankle, if not my head. Now, you need to be firm in where you're at in your own mindset, but you also need to be able to listen. Because if you believe, when you take a stand, you're usually saying, I'm in possession of firm ground, terra firma. Anybody want to tell me that they're in possession of goddamn reality and that the way they see the world, that's the right way for the world? The world? I'll go ahead. I'll wait. Bet you won't.
So again, I'm going to throw another question in here, because I think people would want to know this. Because let's say you have a family or friends, and they say, look, if you're not with us, you're against us. If you don't take a stand one way or the other, then we can call you these names, or we can say this is who you are, because you're not standing up or taking a part in this. So there's pressure to just choose a side,
Right.
or to choose my side, or whatever, right?
And that's called emotional manipulation. And you'll find the most virtuous people do that shit the most.
Because they do it for your own good.
Well, of course they do, because they know it's good for you.
Yes.
Okay. They've talked to the Relief Society president. They've gone to your home teachers. They know.
Yes.
No, it's bullshit. So I've had that. People tell me, listen, Lao, I like listening to you. Sometimes you piss me off, but I need to know where you stand on the BLM. I'm like, I don't think you really want to know where I stand on the BLM. They're like, I need to know, because if you are not in this camp, I'm like, I'll tell you what I believe. I don't believe any life matters. I think you're a fucking child and you're indulgent and you're petulant. I think, in fact, you're the problem. I think you might as well be the Klan and the Black Panthers masturbating each other off for your self-importance. I think you don't know anything about real problems, and I could give a fuck less about your petulance. Grow the fuck up. That's the camp I'm in. And they have the audacity to look at me with like, I'm like, you just asked me what camp I'm in. This is honesty. I'm growing in the heart space with the Divine Mother because I'm standing in my truth. That what? I'm being honest. And I say, but here's what I know. You're standing in a camp. You drew a line and you fucking dared me. You fucking dared me to say, if I don't believe what you believe, you're going to hold my reputation, my cancel culture, my doxing. You're going to hold that as some sort of fucking gun to my head? Well, here's what I know. You were never my friend, obviously, because if you truly love somebody and you're as virtuous as you say, you would never hold some shit like that above someone's head. Second of all, I hope when that fucking ship goes down, you're at the bottom with the anchor. Because only by consequence do we learn cause and effect. And the problem with a lot of these sides, doesn't matter what side of the aisle, they want to live a consequence-free life. And that's why people get fucked up. That's right there. The consequence-free lifestyle. They get religion, and religion gives them a way to out of their consequences. They love the state, and they want the state to legislate themselves out of their consequences. And this is the problem with humans. Humans always want to get rid of consequences. Because if I don't have consequences, then I can live the life I want. It's like, no, you dumbass. You'll be dead before you know it if there's no consequence. For example, if I drop this and it doesn't go down, that's no gravity. We're going to die. If I don't breathe and cause senescence or aging in my body will get cancer and I'll die of fucking cancer. Every consequence, whether you like it or not, is saving you from a death you can't imagine.
Wow.
You talk about, and I got this at OU. I did a talk up at OU, and they were like, where do you stand on climate change? I'm like, fuck your climate. Your climate sucks, and I don't like you or your climate. How's that for? And I don't do that because I actually necessarily espouse it. It's, I'm going to push you. You're going to come to me with an army and then think I'm not going to go to war with you? I'm going to fuck with you because that's my Tao, man. And afterwards, I said to him, so Where's the last time you've been to the Chiang Mai mountain range? Never. They're like, okay, well, what about their clear-cutting rainforest in Indonesia? When's the last time you've been to Jakarta or Bali? Well, I've never been there. Shut the fuck up then. You don't get to tell me about Jakarta or Bali. I've been to Jakarta or Bali. You don't get to tell me about Jakarta or Bali. Go there. We'll sit down. We'll survey the land together. Then you could tell me about Jakarta or Bali. Other than that, shut the fuck up. So I don't want to hear it. And then they say, what? So I haven't been there, so I don't have an opinion? You don't have an opinion. And I'll tell you why you don't have an opinion. Because are they clear cutting there? Sure, actually. I'm not denying that they are. Here's what I am denying. And this is an important. I'm denying that you can conceive, sitting in Boulder, Colorado on the Pearl Market Square, conceive of the complex social issues of Indonesian archipelago. And the little sitting there with mommy, daddy, or whatever fucking group they have that they call their tribe, they're going to tell me that they understand the socioeconomic geopolitical status, because the people who are clear cutting it, it's not the rich white guy with the bourbon and the cigar. It's a guy named Pedro. You know what Pedro is? Fucking dirt poor. And Pedro went and started chopping trees down, which technically he's Indonesian. That's his fucking land. He wants to fuck it up, fine. He'll die, the trees will grow back. It'll be like it never happened within 100 years. So then maybe Pedro's descendants will learn, hey, we shouldn't probably fucking cut those trees. But irrespective, he's dirt fucking poor though. And somebody's like, I'll pay you this amount of money if you want to give me those trees. And Pedro goes, sure, I don't care, because he's starving. Now, why don't you go deal with the starvingness of Pedro? Well, stop fucking around with the symptoms and get to the damn cause. People don't want to do that because that takes actual intellectual honesty, getting out of their fucking little bubble, and they have to put down their self-righteous moral fucking outrage and actually go find out how the world works. And then they'll find out.
Put this down for a while.
100%. But the problem is if in order to do that, you actually, in fact, have to realize that the people that you think you're saving are actually probably the biggest part of the problem. Because they're ignorance. They don't have enough available calories for brain formations and all this stuff. There's a lot of superstition, a lot of animism and spiritualism and polytheism, a lot of different things that have people with a very different way of looking at the world. And so it's not so simple. And people try to make it simple. Well, you don't really have to know all those things. I can have an opinion. No, you can't. You're part of the problem.
But 99% of the scientists say that it's true.
And you know what? 99% of the scientists, okay, 99% of scientists say it's true. Okay, let's go with that. Tell me about those scientists. Who funds their research?
Don't know.
Because the problem with science is great. I love science. You love science. Science is great. I know a lot of science. I really respect science. Here's my problem with science. However, scientists cannot publish their findings. They have to publish whatever the people who commission the study want them to publish, because all their financial remuneration for science is absolutely tied up with what they published, thereby giving whoever commissioned the study. They say, well, no, scientists are generally by nonpartisan, disinterested groups are just throwing millions of dollars. Congress a few years ago commissioned a study to allow $30 million in Michigan to study how bears reproduce. Go ahead. I'll give you a second to let that shit sink in. How do bears reproduce? $30 million study. I can tell you for $20. I can tell you for $20. I really can. It won't take long. I might even show you if you find the right bear and have enough baijiu. Quite frankly, but the truth is, science, while it is amazing, science cannot prove anything. It can only disprove things. That's all it can do. Mm. So it says science is proven. Science can't prove. You don't understand science. Second, third, 99% of science is you fucking it up and then figuring out why you fucked it up, which then gives you great breakthroughs. Then you go experiment on that and fuck that. Let's look at the masks. Let's look at the WHO. Can it be transmitted from person to person? How's this science shit working?
It's just changing all the time, isn't it?
Well, how has it not been ever since the inception of the American Medical Association and Big Pharma, or just pharmaceuticals, period? This new drug is an amazing, amazing thing. 10 years later, have you or a loved one been harmed by this drug?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
It
Well,
happens all the
also
time.
think about this. If anybody knows anything about scientists who's, you know, not to be judgmental, but many of them have egos like that big. How do you get 99% of them to agree on anything?
You don't. And again,
That to me just seems like
but,
absolutely.
but the numbers not true because it's only 99% of respondents. See, they sent out a survey.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
Now,
interesting. Yeah.
Now, so if you send out 13,000 surveys to the same homogenous group of people who think the same way, now, how many did you actually send out? You might have sent out 30,000 and only 13,000. So it's not really 99% now, is it?
Mm-hmm.
But these are the only people that answered it. And the people that answer it, now, how likely are they to answer one way or another if they're also likely to answer a fucking survey? Because I always hear 9 out of 10 doctors, dentists approve this, you know, and you're like, 9 out of 10. Wait, dentists make money off of me fucking up my teeth. I'm not going to go with those 9. I want to go with what's the one want me to do?
Yeah.
Those dentists make money off my teeth being fucked up.
Yes.
So why would they give me something to take care of my teeth when they don't make money off that?
You make a really good point, you know, because that's one of the reasons why democracy doesn't always work, because the majority doesn't necessarily, it doesn't fit that the majority would be right. And even I'm sure, like, even in business, and they talk about, you know, meetings to listen to the one person that is, you know, against whatever it is, because they may be right, even though you all are like, you know, 10,000 of you are all saying it should be this way. That one person could be right.
That's why democracy is dangerous. And I don't mean, I'm not saying, so Lao wants to get rid of democracy. Oh, geez, listen to the rest of the sound tonight, please. No, democracy is not bad, but it's dangerous if you practice it in a pure democracy. Because a pure democracy says the majority rules. So if you've got your house and the majority says you should lose your house, the mob will come to your fucking house and burn it down. And since it was democracy, fuck you, you got no personal rights or personal authority. We are not a democracy in this country. People who say we love democracy
Don't understand it. Yeah. We're a republic. We're a republic.
Federal republic with a democratic form.
So tell us what the difference between that is. Now we're
Actually,
getting into why we're here.
but it's always been this way. We were already talking about it. People think, why are they going into politics? We're not talking about politics. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about the same thing.
Life.
No. The Orthodox Church and Gnostics.
Right.
Gnostics don't believe in democracy in that way, because the Orthodox Church says, this is what all the brothers at the Council of Nicaea and Trent 4 say, blah, blah, blah. This is what the elders say. Here's the pamphlet. This is what everybody believes. Well, the problem with everybody believing that is it could be wrong, like you said. And then we're all fucked. The Gnostics say, no, I need to know that for myself. And then whatever that gnosis comes for me doesn't apply to you. I'm not going to impose it on your life, but I'm going to live that way for me.
So that's individualistic.
Right. And that's all the difference between what we're talking about here is individualism or collectivism. Right. Democracies are collectivist. There's no individual in democracy. Right. And that's why I say it's dangerous, because the form is that, and the idea is good. Everybody should get a say. But the say in the whole, but they also have to retain a say in their own life. Yeah. That's why the Constitution of the United States is a very Gnostic document, because it doesn't tell the individual how to live their life like a Gnostic. It tells what people can't do to you.
All right, now you're going into something I never thought about, but we do know a little bit about the Freemasons being part of the Constitution and the Republic. What does Freemasonry have to do with Gnosticism? Do they have it?
It's based on it. I mean, you know, there's a huge, that's a whole other conversation, but you can't find the Freemasonry of that time that's not hooked up with Rosicrucianism, Hermeticism, all based in Gnosticism and Kabbalah. You can't find it separate. And so these people weren't collectivists. Hence, you look at the American Revolution, and it's based on the ideals of John Locke, which says rugged individualism and personal responsibility and personal property. Whereas the French and the Bolshevik revolutions are based on the ideas of René Rousseau, which, and look how fucking bloody and horrible the French Revolution and the Bolshevik was comparatively. Once we were done with Britain, we're like, we're done. Within 60 years, we're bosom buddies. Because we all went, okay, we get this because of John Locke. But the thing is no, the state above the individual in Eastern and in continental Europe going east. And so you have, if you're a serf, you mean nothing. It's the most amazing thing. People are like, well, but don't you think that Marx and Engels said some really profound things? Yes, if you take out human nature, but each according to their needs, each according to their ability. Who the fuck is the arbiter of what your needs are, though? Let's just get down to brass tacks. Yeah. Well, the state, these are smart men, and you're back to an oligarchy. You're back to autocratic rule, which is no different than the Vatican in the old days. I'm not talking about the Vatican now. Francis is amazing. I love his shoes. He's awesome. I love Anthony Hopkins. It's great. It's awesome. It's amazing.
So also, like, what you're talking about is that it's very difficult. You could say that you and I, our rights, your rights and my rights, we have equal rights. Sure. You know, okay. But it's very hard to say you and I will have to have equal outcome of our lives. So like if you, you know, like I need to have everything that you have in order to be equal to you, and impossible because I don't have a penis for number one, right? And you know, and you don't have a vagina, so it's like that in and of itself is not an equal outcome. But to try and make everybody have the same outcome, of course, it's compassionate.
No, the intention behind it is compassionate.
Compassionate, yes.
But it'd be horrible because if everything had to be equal, I'm gonna go shoot shit. You may be terrified of guns, but if we're going to be equal, you got to shoot shit with me. Or you got to tell me, no, you can't shoot shit. I'm the guy with the gun. You're afraid of him. How are you going to enforce that, Sweet Pea? I'd love to hear that. There's no such thing as equality of outcome because we all want very different things. Yeah. That's the beauty of the world. There's enough for everybody because nobody wants the same shit, really. Everybody wants their version. So equality of opportunity, yes. Everybody should have an opportunity to live their life. But the only way that's going to happen is if everybody else stops putting their shit on that person and allows that person to do it. Now, if it gets to raping kids, if it gets to murder, if it gets that, that's not the same because that person is impinging on other people, right? But if it's about you and you want to go live your life. So this is what I mean by the Gnostics, right? So the Cathars, they were just living their life. They believed that they called the body the dirty envelope. They hated it. They wanted to fucking get out of here, but they needed to get X, Y, and Z. Originally, they weren't even called Cathars. They were called bonhomme, or the good men, right? They're great people. They're lengua d'acquisition. And the church sent people like, hey, you fuckers better stop teaching this heterodoxical heresy. Stop it. But these people were living with the Cathars for a long time, and they would go back to like, I mean, these are like the best people I've ever met in my life. Like literally, they're more Christian than we are in terms of kindness, generosity. I mean, they were extremely just amazing humans. But the church was like, yeah, but you can't control that because each Cathar had the right, and so it comes down to this control. If you live in fear, you need to control the world around you because you can't control your fear or you won't control your fear.
But also, if you make everyone afraid, then you can control them.
And that's how you do it. That's why, so it's a double edge. So fear begets fear in that way. I'm afraid, so I'm going to make everybody else afraid so I can control them because I can't. John Cleese was very, Monty Python. He said one time about censorship, he said, censorship happens because you can't control the way you feel inside, so you need to shut everybody down so they can't say anything to make you feel bad. Yeah. That's called tyranny. Straight the fuck called tyranny, and collectivism is based on tyranny. There's no collectivism That's not tyranny. When I hear these young people, they're like, we want to make a one communist world government. I'm like, who's in charge? In communism, who's in charge? I guarantee you the person who wants to be in charge in communism ain't got your best interest in that.
Isn't the one you want to be in charge.
Look at
Yeah,
Madero,
yeah,
look at
yeah,
Chavez,
yeah,
look at
yeah.
Stalin, look at, look at
Yeah.
Lenin. It didn't have your best interest at heart. But people are like, but if we can do this amazing thing, you can't.
Mm-mm.
Every person has to want to and choose to participate on their own, which means they have to be empowered and get past their own bullshit, which is what.
And the wonderful thing about it is we have some examples of people trying to do that and screwing it up again and again and again. I mean, that's the problem with it, is it's not like it's just a theory that we've never tried before.
Oh, sure. But the thing is, people say they didn't do it right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. But I think that what you're talking about when you say that we have like a mental illness, when you were talking about somebody else's belief and your belief, creates what they call a cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
And that is a very uncomfortable feeling in here. It's like, finding out your boyfriend cheated on you. It's like I had this whole picture of him and me, and now, oh my gosh, like my mind does not know. It's like blowing up, right? Sure. And I think that's what happens to us mentally when we're up against, you would say, reality, right? Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is so I used to have a clinic, and I used to see patients a long time. And during my time seeing patients, one of the things that almost 80% of the people who came into my clinic were actually in extramarital dalliances. Even though people you would never think too, you're like, but if they would always tell me, because I'm never going to judge them, and I don't, whatever, man, do you?
Right.
So one of the things that a woman said to me, she's like, I think I'm a monster. I'm like, you are a monster. Like, what is this? Is a revelation? Are we having a revelation moment? I'll light candles and I'll smudge with sage. It'll be amazing. I've got some sandalwood. We can even put Ganesh in here. It'll be amazing. Wait, you're just coming to the fact that you're a monster? She's like, I thought I was a good person. I'm like, wait, you think you can be a good person and not be a monster? Or you think if you're a monster, you can't be a good person? See that dualistic way of thinking? This is what gets people into trouble. You are a monster, but you're also an amazing person.
Yeah.
You gotta get the monster and the amazing person to have great sex and make up. They have great makeup sex. And so
that's the Cinderella story, isn't it?
100%. And then so I was like, sweetheart, you're not a monster. She's like, it's just that I woke up the other day next to my lover, and I was like, why would I do this? I'm like, because you're a human and your needs weren't being met, and so you're going to find a way to get those needs met. She's like, but I'm not unhappy about marriage. I'm like, just because there's nothing wrong doesn't mean everything's right. Just because everything's right doesn't mean there's nothing wrong. I said, the fact of the matter is this has nothing to do with your husband or your marriage. It has to do with you. And there's some need you're not allowing in yourself. Maybe your husband's trying. Maybe your lover's trying. I don't know. But I know this. You've got to be honest about who you are with yourself. And to say, I could never and I shouldn't, that's not getting to the point of it. It's making it all even worse, that cognitive dissonance. And people would be like, but I don't think it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay or not. I'm saying that it's happening, and we have to look at it that when is it in fact not happened? Do you think there are more people who've had extramarital dalliances or less people? Like, do you think more people have or more people haven't? I'll go ahead and let you tell whatever story you need to tell so that you feel better, you can sleep at night. But the fact is it's always that way. And you'll generally find that when somebody has cheated, if they want to use that word, cheating, they usually end up cheating later on themselves. You know why that happens? You'll find that happens almost in everything. When something happens to you and you're like, oh my God, you end up usually doing it later. Because you need to know both sides of the coin. That's how you have true compassion. True compassion is just understanding. And when you understand, that person's not a monster, they're human, and shit goes sideways real quick when you don't understand humanity or reality. And because you walk away from it going, no, we're going to have equality of outcome, it's all going to be great, and then it never happens, you end up with genocides, you end up with the Holocaust, you end up with all these things because you told reality, I know better. And reality's like,
I can tell you, you get my experience on mushrooms is exactly that. Whatever I judge is what I get to experience.
100%.
And I also, years and years ago when I started, having, relationships and going through the, beginning, middle, and an end, I wrote a little lyric that goes, I do it to you, then you do it to somebody else, then somebody does it to somebody else, then somebody does it to me.
Yes.
It's just like,
Yeah, there's a great picture of that. It's a guy, he's sitting with all of these big stone slabs stacked up like dominoes, and he slams this one going, ha ha, and it's kind of, you know, and it's that way. And so, but now the first question you asked me was, so what is life about? That's what life's about. It's about understanding all of it.
yeah.
And it's not pretty sometimes, it's amazing sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really always amazing if you're willing to see that it's life. You gotta stop judging it. Life does not give a fuck about your judgments.
Yeah.
You know why justice is blind? Because she doesn't want to look at your ass. She doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even know she's holding a scale. She's blind. How would she know?
Yeah. And that's the way nature is, right? It's like
this is reality.
you don't get enough sleep, you're gonna have to pay for it. There's a consequence. Everything has a price.
Cause effect.
Yeah.
And we are trying, with all these social experiments we're doing, we're trying to find a way around nature.
Yeah.
And every time you do that, nature's gonna go, okay, hold on. Go ahead, do what you need to do. I'll catch up in a minute.
Oh, have you ever noticed you build a house and then the next day it's like starting to do, like disintegrate, things are coming down. It's like nature, in 50 years without upkeep, that place is,
100%. But that's the thing, is that people are like, no, I built this amazing thing. It's like, you built it to be destroyed. Get the fuck over it.
Isn't that weird though? Like I just, as human nature, it's just like, I built this thing, I want to hold on to it. And then it's just like, no, it's just gonna come down, because that's bien, what is it? Bien and wa, bien is the growth, wa is the destruction, and that's the way it is.
And it is, but let me tell you what I taught at a Buddhist academy once. I said, you talk about suffering as if you people know suffering, because I like to be inflammatory to Buddhists, because they're Buddhists. What are they going to do?
No, they will not. Yeah, that's true. They will not press you on any of those points.
But one girl who's woke as hell, she's like, Buddha taught that suffering is cessation of suffering. I'm like, yeah, you seem like you got those lessons really well there, sweet pea. Let me tell you what I know about suffering. People suffer when they don't get what they want. People suffer when they get what they don't want. But people suffer the most when they get exactly what they want, but they can't hold on to it. And
you are so right.
But the problem is that, unfortunately, no, you're not going to be able to hold on to it, because even if it lasts forever, you're not. But let's look at the very fundamental thing I explained with the Wu Chi and everything in cosmology.
Yeah.
It starts here, it explodes, and then what is it doing? Day one, it's working its way back into, but you know what? So does your lungs.
Right.
You take another, so does your heart.
Right.
It has to. It's the way everything works. Ba, fun, issuing or going forth, and return.
Yeah.
Mystics are all just on the path of return. That's the only difference between a mystic and a non-mystic.
Yeah.
People are the high-licks who are like, oh, I just want to put my money. They're going out, they're going forward. And people who judge them are retards, because it's like, stop judging them.
Yeah.
They're on the way out. Yeah, but the path of return is the way it was. Says the person on the path of return, but they're not on the path of return yet. They'll get there. And when they're on the path of return, probably your ass is going to be on the path of going back out again.
Yeah.
And so people are like, well, I mean, no, because when you get off the wheel of samsara, let me tell you about your wheel of samsara, okay? You are born, then you die. And you're born, and then you die. And each time you're born, it's a new conversation. And every time that conversation you're having with life is, So if X, Y, and Z are true, then what about A? And then there's that life. And then you come, okay, if X, Y, and Z are true and then A, then what about B? And then there's a new life. Everything is just, you're taking the aggregate of the experience of your immortal self, and then you're saying, if this is true, then what about? Now, you take the concept of God. You call whatever you want, seize up, the wop, the bop, the goddamn flying spaghetti monster, whatever makes you feel happy. Call it that. If every single soul in every possible lifetime is going through everything it's going through and feeding that information back, do you see now how you have an omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent being? And you see the amount of information. So when you say God is all knowing, of course, look.
Because why would you limit God to only experience one thing?
Somebody once asked me, do you think God is all powerful? And I say, no. God lacks one thing: limits. God lacks limits. If we're God, then how come we're not like me? Because humans and God are only different than humans believe in limits. God has no limits. And that's why we're God, but sitting here believing we're not God. Once you overcome those limits, the gnosis follows. Rumi actually tried to tell people, but people don't listen to Rumi because they think he's being sweet and loving and they just love his work. And him and James Joyce and Oprah, the best. But Rumi said, do not search for love. Search for the obstacles, the limits, you have between you and love and remove them. Now, remember, Rumi was a Sufi. He was a mystical Muslim. He's a very, very adroit mystic. And one of the things that people don't know is that in all religions, doesn't matter what they are, they all have one actual tenet that they all believe in, no matter what.
In love and what?
They have one tenet that they all believe in. Every one of them believe in this one tenet. God is love.
Yeah, yeah.
But if God is love, then guess what? Love is God.
Right. Yes.
And so therefore, when you say, do not look for love, you could also say, do not look for God. Look for the obstacles you've placed between
you and God.
And remove them.
Yeah.
And then what will you find? You'll find you've been brushing his teeth all these years.
Oh, good. That's probably a really good place to end on. That was beautiful. That was awesome. Wow.
I feel like my anahata chakra and my yoni have opened, and so it is.
Well, you rock. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too.
I don't love you all because of what you do, and people say, how can he love me? He doesn't know me. You don't think I know you, sweet pea?
I do know you know me.
I know all of you. I know every one of you. You know how I know all of you? I know myself. And I know that there's no difference between us. And no matter what you go through, I've been through it, and I still love, which means I love you, which means you're capable of love too, if you just remove the limitation of, if I don't feel pain, then I won't be in pain anymore. You don't feel pain, sweet pea, you won't feel love. Sorry. You don't feel pain, you won't feel God. Sorry. So, competence, vaccination to fear.
Yeah, yeah.
There's fear and trembling before the Lord.
There's fear and trembling before love. Is that what you said?
No, or Lord. Fear and trembling before the Lord.
Okay.
Ergo, you have to get rid of your fear and trembling before you can
before you can see the Lord. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, which is you brushing his teeth.
Wow. Yeah. This is awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I love you too. Till next time.
Indeed. Bye-bye, everyone. Namaste.
Namaste.